Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everyone. Bienvenue à cette conférence de presse. Je m'appelle Catherine Lévesque. Je suis journaliste pour le National Post et je serai votre modératrice aujourd'hui. So today we're joined with the Honorable Bill Blair, President of the Queen's Privy Council for Canada and Minister for Emergency Preparedness, the Honorable Dominic LeBlanc, Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Infrastructure and Communities, the Honorable Mona Fortier, President of the Treasury Board, the Honorable Marco Mendicino, Minister of Public Safety, the Honorable Omar Alghabra, Minister of Transport, as well as Yasir Naqvi, Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre. They will be providing an update regarding the situation in Ottawa right now. Just a reminder for questions, please raise your hand. We will start with, please raise your hand on Zoom, rather. I'm told we have 20 minutes of questions after the remarks, so I'll hand over the floor to the ministers and then we'll proceed to questions. Merci beaucoup.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction. Bon après-midi. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. Before we begin, I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that I am speaking to you today from the traditional territory of the Mississauga of the Credit. The events that have taken place in Ottawa over the past 10 days have had a significant and frankly unacceptable impact on the lives and the freedom of people who live here, who conduct business here, and among all Canadians coming to do business in their nation's capital. And since the outset, we have encouraged those who are engaged in this process to obey the law and to respect the rights of their fellow citizens. To the people of Ottawa, and on behalf of our government, let me first say that we share in your frustration and deeply regret that the actions of these protesters continue to inflict such disruption in your neighborhoods. The RCMP, the Parliamentary Protective Services, and other federal partners have remained in close contact with the Ottawa Police Service, and we continue to play a significant coordination role between these agencies. But let me be clear, it is not the role of any government to direct law enforcement operations. It is the responsibility of the police of jurisdiction, and in this case, the Ottawa Police Service, to maintain public order and to uphold the rule of law. They must have the appropriate resources, and they do have the appropriate tools and authorities that they require to keep their communities safe. And in circumstances where the events exceed the capacity of the police service to respond as they are required to do, there are well-established authorities for the police to seek assistance. And as the federal government, we are here to provide support to local police, and we have responded affirmatively to every request for assistance that we have received to help strengthen the Ottawa Police Service's ability to protect the people of Ottawa. There has been also ongoing work among all of our federal departments to ensure that we are mobilizing all of the resources that are required and requested by the province of Ontario and the City of Ottawa to provide every support that is required. Yesterday, as many of you are aware, the City of Ottawa declared a state of emergency. And in response to this, the federal government is proposing to convene a trilateral table with municipal and provincial partners. I've reached out today to the Solicitor General for the province of Ontario and to the Mayor of Ottawa to convene a table that will allow us to keep lines of communication open during what is a fluid and dynamic situation and to respond with speed and efficiency to meet the city's needs. Let me be very clear, however, that this is simply building upon the active and ongoing conversation, collaboration, and coordination that has taken place on every political level between our respective officials and will allow us to keep these lines of communication open. There has been open and active engagement from our senior public officials, the provincial senior public officials, and the City of Ottawa to provide support. We also know that there is close communication and collaboration between the municipal police services, provincial police services, and the RCMP. I would now like to take the opportunity to address those individuals who are still participating in this event. Many of the actions that have taken place over the course of this demonstration have been unlawful and, frankly, disrespectful to the rights and freedoms of all Canadians. It is well past the time to bring this protest to an end. Canada is a peaceful nation, and we often serve as an example of hope to countries around the world. And we look after our neighbors and we treat each other with respect in this country. We do not threaten or intimidate our fellow citizens. We do not desecrate the National War Memorial. We don't dishonor statues dedicated to national heroes. And we do not tolerate individuals who wave flags riddled with symbols of hate and discrimination. The freedom to engage in lawful, peaceful assembly and protest is a fundamental charter right. However, when an event is no longer peaceful, when the event is disrupting the lives and jeopardizing the livelihoods of fellow Canadians. Local residents have been harassed for wearing masks. Business owners have been forced to close out of concern for the safety of their staff. Families with young children haven't been able to sleep due to the constant honking of horns. And this, frankly, needs to end. The last 2 years have been incredibly difficult for every single Canadian. The pandemic has impacted the mental health of Canadians in every part of the country. We've missed birthdays, holidays, and celebrations with family and with friends. We've had to say goodbye to far too many loved ones over video calls, and people have felt alone, isolated, and scared. We all want this pandemic to be over. We have all made sacrifices, and we want to return to normal as quickly as possible, and we will get there. But the way forward is not by infringing upon the freedom and rights of your fellow Canadians. It's by getting vaccinated. It's by doing your part to protect yourself and your community. I want to assure the people of Ottawa that we will continue to support the City of Ottawa and the Ottawa Police Service in their work as the police of jurisdiction. And I would like to extend my gratitude as well to all of the police services that are assisting in this effort. Thank you all very much. And I'd now invite my colleague, Minister Mendicino, to say a few words.
Thank you, Bill. Bonjour tout le monde, and I too would like to recognize that I'm joining you virtually from the Indigenous territories of the Algonquin people. Over the past weekend, a number of demonstrations took place across the country. Some were carried out peacefully and in accordance with the law. And this is thanks to local law enforcement, as well as residents and businesses who showed patience, understanding, and respect for the rule of law during those protests. The people of Ottawa, however, have had to endure significant disruption to their daily lives as a result of the ongoing convoy here. There have been numerous incidents of intimidation, harassment, violence, and hate. Many residents have been effectively held hostage in their own city, blockaded by an angry, loud, intolerant, and violent crowd. While everyone believes in the right to free speech, this convoy has crossed the line of acceptable conduct towards fellow Canadians many, many times. Now, there has been some progress over the last 12 hours, and there needs to be more progress and more quickly. I want to commend Ottawa Police Services for stepping up enforcement. Over 500 tickets laid, charges laid, criminal investigations ongoing, structures are coming down, and this is being done safely and respectfully. In the weeks that follow, we'll need to be really clear that we can't find ourselves in a similar situation again. We're also very concerned about the ongoing situation at the Coots border crossing in Alberta, where a group of blockaders continues to impede access with important linkages to the United States. We are grateful to the work of the CBSA, the RCMP, and other officials to ensure that those lines of supply continue to flow. I want to be clear that there should be no differences across political parties in the way that we are dealing with this moment. It would be a terrible precedent to say that if you show up to the nation's capital with heavy equipment and blockade the capital city, that you can force reckless change in our public policy. It's been surprising that some who say they believe in law and order seem not to get this point. Mais pour l'instant, voici que nous faisons pour soutenir la vie et le service de police d'Ottawa qui est responsable de l'application des lois locales. Depuis le début, le gouvernement fédéral est là pour soutenir la vie et le SPO. Au cours de l'évolution de la situation, la GRC a approuvé les demandes successives de ressources supplémentaires. À la suite d'un appel que j'ai eu avec le maire Watson la semaine dernière, j'ai pu confirmer que la GRC avait reçu et approuvé une demande d'agents additionnels. Suite à une autre demande cette fin de semaine, d'autres agents ont été mis à leur disposition. Depuis samedi, plus de 275 membres de la GRC sont disponibles pour aider le service de police d'Ottawa et travailler sous son commandement. La GRC est en pourparlers avec le SPO, la PPO et d'autres partenaires policiers et évaluera et adaptera son soutien et fonction de l'évolution de la situation. J'exige des mises à jour opérationnelles tout au long de la journée et des séances d'information quotidiennes du commissaire et de mes représentants pour m'assurer que nous mettons fin au convoi et que nous rétablissons la loi de l'ordre. Je discute avec mes homologues provinciaux et municipaux et j'ai parlé avec le solliciteur général de l'Ontario, la ministre Jones, le premier ministre Kenney et le ministre Savage de l'Alberta, et bien sûr avec le maire d'Ottawa, M. Watson. The COVID-19 pandemic is approaching its second anniversary in Canada. We all want to see a return to normal life and a responsible evidence-based easing of the guidelines and protocols. And I assure you that day is coming soon. Canadians have been incredibly united and have persevered through it all. The approach our government offered is about using science and good faith efforts to protect ourselves and one another. Because people have chosen this path. Thousands of lives have been saved. And we cannot allow an angry crowd to reverse a course that continues to save lives in this last stretch. This should never be a precedent for how to make policy in Canada. We believe in peace, order, and good government in Canada. The stories from communities across the country of people sticking together, looking after one another, and giving back have somehow made this year a little bit easier. But we can't give up on each other now. More than ever, we need to support one another, to work side by side, regardless of level of government or party stripe, to take care of one another. Canadians deserve to feel safe in their communities, and no one is above the law. Thank you. Merci.
Good afternoon. I want to start off by thanking Canadian truckers. They continue to deliver for Canadians during these challenging times. I continue to meet with truckers and various representatives and hear their input. Je continue de discuter avec des organisations de communautaires. Last week, I met with truckers in Mississauga and in Alberta. Last Monday, representatives of the trucking industry participated in the Supply Chain Summit, offering important feedback about how to address real challenges faced by the industry. This morning, I met with the Canadian Trucking Alliance, where we had a constructive conversation about addressing the industry's needs and priorities. They all told me this occupation does not represent Canadian truckers. They also all said that in Canada, this is not how we raise concerns and advocate for policies. These blockades and occupations need to end. Unlawful activities are not the way to offer meaningful involvement in government policy development. In addition to engaging the industry, I've also been working with my provincial counterparts. Je travaille avec mes collègues de province. On Saturday, I met with my Alberta counterpart, Minister Sawney, where we exchanged ideas and I offered on behalf of the federal government our support. I'm also looking forward to be speaking with Minister Mulroney on how we can work together. The provinces have extensive regulatory powers over commercial trucking and road transportation to help end this unlawful occupation and disruptions of commercial trucks blockading the streets and highways. These powers could include, for example, quickly enforcing the provisions of the Ontario Highway Safety to begin suspending commercial licenses and also insurance of commercial owners of the equipment blockading the streets days on end in a city or on a highway. It's clear, blockades of streets and bridges is against the law and should bring serious consequences for the owners. I would also encourage the province of Ontario to draw on lessons learned from other provinces on how to use their road safety authorities to contain unlawful activities by commercial trucks. We saw Quebec successfully do this last weekend with the roadside safety inspections of trucks traveling to blockades. I want to assure Canadians that we hold our sacred responsibilities to protect their health and safety and protect our economy seriously. We will continue to be guided by the best advice to manage the pandemic. And as the situation evolves, we will adjust our posture, as I am sure provincial and territorial governments will. We are all tired of COVID-19, but we must remain vigilant and take advice from our doctors and public health experts. Nous devons rester vigilants. And now I'd like to pass the mic to my friend Dominic LeBlanc.
Merci beaucoup, Omar. Les événements qui ont toujours lieu à Ottawa ont profondément choqué tous les Canadiens. Depuis le début de cette crise, notre gouvernement travaille en étroite collaboration avec nos partenaires provinciaux et municipaux afin de déterminer leurs besoins et de voir de quelle façon le gouvernement fédéral peut offrir un soutien. I am and will continue to be, along with my cabinet colleagues, in contact with mayors and premiers from across the country. Our government is confident that the City of Ottawa and the Province of Ontario have the tools and the jurisdiction to best respond to this crisis. We will continue to liaise with our provincial and municipal partners to put an end to this unacceptable situation. And as always, stand ready, as Minister Blair said, to provide any appropriate assistance available. Alors avec ça, je tourne la parole maintenant à mon collègue Mona Fortier. Mona, à vous.
Merci, Dominic. Hello, and thank you all for joining us today. Et bonjour, merci pour votre présence. Au nom des résidents, des familles, des travailleurs, des entreprises et des organismes communautaires d'Ottawa-Vanier, d'Ottawa Centre et de toute la région de la Capitale-Nationale, je vous dis clairement, nous en avons eu assez. This situation must come to an end. Our residents, workers, and businesses are suffering. Our small businesses and community organizations have shown incredible resilience throughout this pandemic. Our essential services have stood strong through lockdowns and safety measures and have helped us keep residents safe. We are here to let you know we stand with you and we will continue to have your back. In the past days, I have had numerous conversations with Mayor Watson. I have also spoken at length with city councillors, representatives of local BIAs, business, and community leaders. I have been engaged with concerned businesses, residents, and organizations through countless phone calls, emails, and text messages. They have shared firsthand with me the disruptions to their livelihood and well-being. Nos résidents méritent de se sentir en sécurité dans notre communauté. Et en ce moment, et ce, depuis 10 jours, les droits et libertés de ma communauté sont limités et cela doit cesser. J'aimerais remercier mes collègues pour votre présence aujourd'hui, pour votre précieuse collaboration depuis le début de cette situation. J'aimerais aussi remercier mes collègues de la région de la Capitale-Nationale qui sont au premier rang de l'immense pression et des difficultés en lien avec le convoi. Let us be clear. Our government will always support the right to peaceful protest in Canada, but we will also always condemn violence and threats. And from what we are witnessing on the ground and hearing from residents, This is the furthest thing from a peaceful protest. We call on the protesters to stop and respect the communities we represent. Merci et je passe la parole à mon collègue d'Ottawa Centre, le député Yasir Naqvi.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon. No words can accurately describe the agony of what my community has gone through. For residents of downtown Ottawa, this continues to be a horrific experience. C'est une expérience horrible. From what my community has seen in the past 11 days, the protesters' actions has not been peaceful or lawful. Members of my community have been harassed because of their skin color, yelled at for wearing masks, subjected to hurtful and racist symbols, torturous honking, and their accounts of assaults. Parking lots have been used as urinals. Fireworks are being hurled down the streets every night. And over the weekend, there was an attempt to light on fire an apartment building. My heart goes out to the residents of downtown Ottawa who have demonstrated incredible resiliency, patience, and strength. We welcome the enhanced enforcement and the mayor's decision to declare a state of emergency. It has to continue until all the residential streets of downtown Ottawa are freed of illegally parked trucks and restored back to what they were before so that people can live peacefully again. This has gone on too long. Residents are not unable to sleep. Workers and businesses remain once again severely impacted. Il est temps que cela cesse. Notre communauté mérite de vivre en paix. I'm glad to see further collaboration between all levels of government. We must work together to put an end to this protest and protect our community. Thank you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. On va maintenant passer à la période de questions sur Zoom. Un petit rappel de lever votre main pour que je puisse vous donner la parole. Et comme à notre habitude, on va procéder d'abord avec les membres et les organisations membres, tout en faisant une alternance anglais-français. So just in English, I'll repeat. So we do have 20 minutes of questions. Just a reminder to raise your hand if you do have a question so I can unmute you on Zoom. And as usual, we will be alternating between English and French questions. And ministers, if I could ask you, since we have limited time, to keep your answers short, we'll be able to have as many questions as possible. So on that note, I'll start with Mia Rapson from the Canadian Press.
Hi, yes, I'm curious if you would be able to talk about the foreign funding that is alleged to have been behind much of this, the impact that has on Canada, what kind of investigations can be done, and what the laws actually say or limit about those kinds of donations or funding.
I'm happy to speak to that. The first thing that I would say is that obviously, to the extent that there may be any ongoing investigation that is being carried out by law enforcement, that those investigations will be conducted independent of the elected government. But I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the actions that GoFundMe has taken. As you will recall, there was roughly $10 million that was contributed to that platform. And as a result of some due diligence undertaken by GoFundMe around the source of those contributions, as well as what they might be used towards, they suspended the distribution of those funds to the convoy. On a plain reading of their statement, there were flags that gave them cause for concern. I will say that in general terms, we need to be very vigilant about external forces, about foreign interference, and that funds which are being collected are not used for inappropriate purposes, which may indeed undermine public safety. At the end of the day, to the extent that there is evidence or information with regards to those activities, we know and appreciate that they will be investigated by our independent law enforcement partners.
Thank you. And I don't know who is best to answer this question, if it's Minister Blair or Minister Mendicino. There's been a lot of discussion here today about that this isn't how Canada is. Canada is a peaceful country, and that the police have the tools to manage this. But at least from many people in Ottawa, there are a lot of people calling this a complete failure of policing. Even today, as the police chief was talking about not allowing any more gasoline to come into the red zone, there were pictures and videos being taken of people carrying those cans right past police. So can you talk about the confidence that people should have in police, given what people have witnessed, and if you really do think that the police have the tools to bring this to an end?
I'm happy to say a few words about that and then pass on to Minister Blair, as both he and I have extensive experience within the law enforcement context. But first and foremost, as I said in my remarks, I think there will be an opportunity for reflection on how law enforcement has been upheld and where there have been challenges. And I want to echo the comments that were made by everyone on the panel today of the sympathy that we extend to Ottawa residents who have a right to feel safe when they leave their homes, to move about their daily lives, to be able to get to work, to be able to drop off their kids to daycare, to essentially be confident that the rule of law will be upheld. I know that the Ottawa Police Service has certainly stepped up enforcement activities, and as I mentioned during my remarks, they should be commended for that, and we will certainly look forward to that moment when we will see the conclusion of this convoy safely and responsibly, and with the cooperation of those who have participated in it. I also want to make the point, and it is important for everyone to appreciate, that law enforcement does operate independently of the elected government. We're not a country that believes that policing should be carried out or be an extension of the political branch of the government. There are very good and principled reasons why the divisions of functions need to be maintained separately and clearly within a democracy. I'll pass it over to Bill Blair for some additional comments.
Yeah, thanks very much, Marco. And, you know, as Marco has just said, it's a very important principle of our democracy that elected officials do not give direction with respect to the investigations or the actions of the police. And I know, and I spoke this morning myself to the minister responsible for policing in Ontario, the Solicitor General of Ontario, and she's very mindful of her legal responsibilities to ensure that the police have the resources that they need, as we do, but that we are not giving them direction. But I would also point out, in response to your question, that we have seen a number of incidents and evidence of the effectiveness that law enforcement can have when they're adequately resourced, that they have the tools, the authorities, and the laws that they need to effectively manage this type of a situation. We've seen it evidenced in Toronto and in Quebec, in other jurisdictions across the country. Our responsibility here, working with our provincial and municipal partners, is to ensure that the police of jurisdiction, the Ottawa Police Service, has the resources and the support that they need to do their job. And that's what we are committed to doing. And at the same time, that should always be done in a very thoughtful way, so as not to create a situation where there would be a perception that any order of government is giving direction to the police. We're simply supporting them and doing their job and make sure that they have the tools and resources that they need. I'd also point out, by the way, that I will tell you, I'm speaking to my counterpart, the Minister, the Solicitor General in Ontario. They've been, from the very outset of this, ensuring that police services across Ontario and the OPP have been providing support and assistance, and they'll continue to do so. But we also have respect for the authorities and responsibilities of the police to maintain peace in their communities, to maintain public order, and to uphold the rule of law.
Merci. On va passer à Mylène Crête, La Presse.
Bonjour. J'aimerais savoir, l'ex-gouverneur de la Banque du Canada, Mark Carney, a utilisé le mot sédition dans une lettre ouverte qui a été publiée dans le Globe and Mail. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec ce qualificatif pour la manifestation?
Peut-être que je peux commencer avec une réponse et puis passer la parole à mes collègues, incluant le ministre LeBlanc. Mais je veux commencer par souligner les inquiétudes de tout le monde qu'il faut suivre la loi, qu'il faut respecter les droits des personnes qui habitent au Ottawa. Il y a quelques leaders dans le contexte de ce convoi qui avaient exprimé quelques idées qui est tellement extrême. Cette déclaration, cet exemple de déclaration n'est pas consistant avec les valeurs canadiennes. Et ça, c'est la raison que tout le monde aujourd'hui, avec une voix, a appelé à le convoi de quitter, de sortir Ottawa. Donc, il faut distinguer les manifestations qui sont qui passaient avec un niveau de pacifique, mais pendant les dernières quelques journées, il n'y a pas beaucoup de pacifique en Ottawa. Et maintenant, je vais passer la parole à Dominic.
Merci beaucoup, Marco. Des phrases qui indiquent possiblement un comportement criminel, comme M. Blair et M. Mendicino ont bien exprimé, sont pas dans le rôle des élus. Cependant, le gouvernement fédéral comprend très, très bien la colère, la frustration des résidents de la grande région d'Ottawa. Mes collègues élus à Ottawa l'ont bien exprimé. Et comme mes collègues ont dit, le devoir du gouvernement fédéral, c'est de s'assurer que les autorités policières qui ont la responsabilité primaire et législative pour régler la situation, ramener un état de droit dans la ville d'Ottawa, ont des ressources nécessaires pour prendre des décisions qui s'imposent. Et c'est ça que nous allons continuer de faire.
En même temps, vos actions, on a l'impression que vos actions sont un peu trop tard. Ça fait qu'on est quand même au 11e jour là, de manifestation. Il y a eu beaucoup de gens qui ont rapporté toutes sortes de crimes qui ont été commis. Il me semble qu'on s'attendrait à une réponse un peu plus musclée de la part du gouvernement fédéral.
Mais écoute, comme j'avais déjà dit, je pense dans l'avenir, dans le court terme, il y aura une opportunité pour une discussion, pour observer quelques leçons pendant la dernière semaine et demie. Mais maintenant, il faut soutenir toutes les opérations qui sont en train de faire par nos services de policiers dans une façon indépendante de le gouvernement fédéral. Ça, c'est un des principes de notre démocratie. Il y a des bonnes raisons pour respecter les compétences, la juridiction de les services policiers qui a la responsabilité pour avancer toutes les décisions opérationnelles sur le terrain.
David Aiken, Global News.
Thank you for taking our questions. Minister LeBlanc, some have suggested that this should be resolved by negotiations with somebody from the federal side and somebody from the gang out the front there. What do you think of that idea?
David, I'll offer a few comments and my colleagues may want to pick up as well. We have, since the beginning of these unfortunate events, as you said 9-10 days ago, been in constant discussions with municipal and provincial partners as to what the federal government can appropriately do to support the law enforcement authorities that have the jurisdiction and the decision-making role to ensure that public order is kept in the City of Ottawa. That's the primary responsibility for the Government of Canada. We have certainly taken note, as my colleagues have said, of the understandable frustration that Canadians have with the ongoing pandemic circumstance. Our decisions have always been based on the best advice from doctors, from scientists, and what we think is in the best interest of ensuring the safety and public health of Canadians. So those are the factors that our government considers when we make decisions, obviously with provincial public health authorities, on the appropriate mix of measures. So we'll continue to be guided by that advice. but also continue to support municipal and provincial partners who have the responsibility in terms of the circumstances which are so completely unacceptable unfolding in Ottawa today. But maybe my colleagues want to add something to that.
I'll just say
it's okay, Minister. I
quickly,
think that's fine unless somebody wants to say, yes, the negotiations are a great idea. We've got a limited amount of time. So anybody want to put their hand up and say negotiations are a great idea? I'll just move on with my follow-up. Sorry to cut you off. Again, it's just we've only got a limited time. Also, Minister LeBlanc, just because you have the longest personal history with the Prime Minister, many say, wow, the national capital is in a state of emergency, wondering about the Prime Minister's comment on the fact that his national capital is in a state of emergency, a city he lives in personally, has lived here for some time. He's a resident as well as a Prime Minister. Can you give us an indication of his involvement in this particular predicament? Is he involved in meetings? What and where is the Prime Minister?
So again, the Prime Minister has been actively engaged every day in briefings and in updates from senior officials in the national security and intelligence community in terms of what's happening across the country, in Ottawa and across the country. I've had the opportunity to speak and work with him in meetings right through this past weekend. And the Prime Minister has been very, very much involved and continues to be involved in the operation of the Government of Canada. And the Government of Canada has continued to function as it must in a very important public health context. And we have every reason to think that important work will continue over the next number of days.
Thank you.
Juste avant qu'on commence, qu'on continue en fait avec Émilie Bergeron de la presse canadienne, I'm told we have a little bit more time for questions until 2 p.m. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for staying. Alors, Émilie Bergeron, la presse canadienne.
Oui, bonjour. Tout à l'heure, vous disiez que la police d'Ottawa a quand même des ressources pour gérer la situation, même si vous donnez des ressources supplémentaires, par exemple avec la GRC. Mais ça fait plusieurs jours qu'on entend le chef de police de la police d'Ottawa dire qu'il n'y a pas de solution policière à cette impasse. Donc, comment on peut réconcilier vos deux discours?
Tout d'abord, je veux souligner que la GRC avait ajouté beaucoup plus de ressources additionnelles pour aider, pour soutenir les services de police en Ottawa. Et je veux remercier tous les membres de la GRC pour leur contribution sur le terrain. C'est exceptionnel et il faut continuer avec des lignes de communication entre la GRC et l'OPS. Je sais que le commissionnaire de la GRC parlait toujours avec le chef de police ici en Ottawa. Et en même temps, il faut reconnaître que après la termination de cette convoi, il faut embarquer avec une conversation comment ils peuvent améliorer les préparations pour un événement comme ça. Ce n'est pas acceptable où il y a une blocade, où il y a des interruptions pour eux qui habitent en Ottawa. Il y a plusieurs des exemples où la loi n'était pas suivie et c'est une inquiétude pour tout le monde. Mais maintenant, la priorité est pour notre gouvernement est de travailler ensemble avec nos homologues, avec les provinces et même ici en Ottawa, pour travailler pour soutenir tout le bon travail que la police fait sur le terrain et d'avancer la conclusion de cette convoi. Et peut-être je vais passer maintenant à Dominic pour quelques autres mots.
Moi, je suis entièrement d'accord avec ce que mon collègue vient d'exprimer. Le rôle primordial du gouvernement fédéral dans une telle circonstance, c'est d'être là à l'appui de nos partenaires municipaux et provinciaux. Et comme mes collègues ont bien exprimé, tous les jours, de multiples
Monsieur Leblanc, vous avez gelé. Je ne sais pas si on peut... Oh. Si quelqu'un d'autre voulait répondre, ou sinon, on peut passer à la question de suivi, Émilie?
Oui, je vais y aller avec ma question de suivi. Donc, justement, M. Leblanc parlait de coopération entre le municipal, le provincial et le fédéral. Cette table trilatérale là, dont vous parliez plus tôt, qu'est-ce que ça vient changer et pourquoi l'annoncer aujourd'hui au jour 11? Qu'est-ce que ça va changer?
Don?
Well, in the absence of Mr. LeBlanc, if I may suggest, what we are doing is creating some formal structure around the important work that has to take place between all three orders of government in providing assistance and support to the City of Ottawa and through our respective police services to the Ottawa Police Service so that they can fulfill their responsibilities. It's very clear the legislation in Ontario, the Police Services Act in Ontario, creates a responsibility for the police service and of jurisdiction, in this case, the Ottawa Police Service, to maintain public order and to provide for law enforcement. And we're working together collaboratively to make sure that all three orders of government are there for the City of Ottawa, and most importantly, for the residents of Ottawa, to ensure that their police service has the resources and the support that they need to do their job.
Thank you very much. We'll try to reconnect Mr. LeBlanc. I think he's here. Okay, we'll go with the next question. Kevin Gallagher, CTV News.
Good afternoon. Can we be specific? What type of options are there for the federal government to assist the Ottawa Police or the City of Ottawa?
Well, I think on a practical level, Kevin, you've already seen that the RCMP have stepped up by adding 275 Mounties who have been deputized to enforce the law locally here in our communities. And again, I just want to commend them for their exemplary work. I know that the past number of days in Ottawa have been challenging for everyone, and especially those who live here. In addition to that, there are funds which the City of Ottawa can apply for within the public safety portfolio to help offset some of the additional expenditures and costs which they have had to incur as a result of having to add those resources. The way the law works is that where the Ottawa Police Service needs additional capacity and support, they first must turn to and have turned to the OPP, and that is done in conjunction with my counterpart, Minister Jones, with whom I've had a number of very constructive conversations, and who, again, to the credit of the OPP, they too have been adding resources, as have many police services right across the province. And this is another example of the way in which we come together in difficult moments. I think in addition to that, I know that the mayor in my discussion with him has expressed a real concern for those businesses who have been negatively impacted as a result of having to remain shut. And that has been caused by the blockades, the disruption, the very flagrant and troubling behavior that my colleagues, MP Naqvi and Minister Fortier, I think, articulated at the beginning of this press conference. It is going to be important that after we bring about the peaceful resolution of this convoy, that we have a conversation about the ways in which we can be prepared for such an event. We need to respect the right to free speech and assembly. That is an important element of our democracy, but it can't come at the expense of public safety. And I think there will be an important reflection from all of this as we move forward.
I also would like to add to what Minister Mendicino has said, is that our officials have been cooperating with provincial and municipal officials. There's a table where there's ongoing discussions at a deputy minister's level. For example, the Ministry of Transport has offered ideas to the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, where they have powers within the Highway Traffic Act to enforce violations of that act, where commercial vehicles registration can be suspended or insurance can be suspended, where violators can be held accountable and face serious consequences to the violation of the law. Thanks.
For my follow-up, I just want to circle back to the foreign interference. What laws are there in Canada? I'm not sure I'm aware of any, because it doesn't seem that there's anything that would prevent a citizen from any country to donate to an online charity initiative like GoFundMe that I think is actually registered in California for a charity here. I'm just trying to understand what is the legal process that the federal government may look at in terms of what is being called foreign interference?
Well, first and foremost, Kevin, we have very strong laws in this country that are covered extensively in the criminal code that would legally prohibit anybody from contributing to an effort to undermine public safety or national security. And there are numerous provisions that would apply. And so if, for example, somebody were contributing with the intent of either causing public harm or trying to undermine public safety, that would be something that would be against the law, and there would be appropriate sanctions for that if proven in a court of law. What you have, I think, in addition to that is an intelligence apparatus that looks very closely for linkages between the patterns and the sources of those contributions and what they may be used for. And if some of the sources of those funds are beyond our borders, then obviously we would want to be looking at that very, very carefully. We have a national security community here that does exceptional work every day to be on alert for any foreign interference that might undermine our national security. And there are well-established conventions on how the intelligence side within the public safety community shares at the appropriate moment in time their information, their intelligence with conventional law enforcement so that where appropriate further action may be taken within the sphere of criminal justice. All of which is to say there are good, strong laws in Canada to prevent foreign interference. There is a very robust intelligence community to action where appropriate and to flag to the government where there are concerns around threats to national security. And we also have a federal policing branch within the RCMP that specializes in this area. And that's why I'm certainly confident that wherever there's foul play of this sort, that we will be in a position to act appropriately.
And thank you. And if I may just add, I think it's also very useful to keep Canadians informed. When I think when they understand the source of some of this funding, it helps them understand the motivation of this protest, who's actually behind it. And I think it also reveals, some of, the false nature of the claims being made and the positions being put forward. I think that casting a light on the source of funding that supports this illegal activity taking place in our country is useful for all Canadians to have a better understanding of what authorities are attempting to deal with.
OK. On va aller à Juliane Lapointe, Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour. C'est une question pour le ministre Leblanc, s'il est de retour. Sinon, un autre francophone, ça fera l'affaire. Vous êtes quand même nombreux aujourd'hui pour annoncer une table de concertation. J'aimerais peut-être que vous vous mettiez à la place d'un résident d'Ottawa qui a peur dans son quartier depuis 11 jours maintenant. Est-ce que vous pensez vraiment que c'est ce que les gens veulent entendre comme solution? Est-ce que vous pouvez accorder plus de ressources pour la police, comme le demande le chef Slowey, ou même nous annoncer qu'éventuellement la loi sur les mesures d'urgence pourrait être amenée pour déloger des manifestants? Est-ce que vous avez une solution concrète à proposer pour ces gens-là qui attendent des réponses?
Bonjour Juliane, c'est Dominic LeBlanc. Moi, je vais offrir quelques commentaires et peut-être Mona ou d'autres collègues veulent en ajouter. Comme le ministre Blair a bien expliqué, c'est des mesures qui sont en place depuis le début de cette crise. La concertation entre les trois ordres de gouvernement, les autorités municipales, provinciales et fédérales. Alors, c'est une continuation d'une collaboration active que nous avons eue depuis le début de ces événements. En plus, mes collègues ont confirmé que toutes les demandes d'aide acheminées par les autorités municipales et provinciales au gouvernement du Canada, comme il se doit, ont été répondues dans l'affirmatif. Et nous sommes toujours prêts à répondre aux besoins des autorités municipales qui ont la responsabilité législative dans cette circonstance pour ramener l'ordre public dans la ville d'Ottawa. Alors, le gouvernement fédéral a un rôle essentiel d'appui avec des ressources accrues qu'on peut offrir à nos partenaires. Mais aussi, nous voulons dire, comme mes collègues ont bien dit, que c'est le temps maintenant pour le convoi de partir. Ils ont harcelé les résidents du centre-ville d'Ottawa depuis déjà une dizaine de jours. C'est des circonstances pour les gens qui veulent aller travailler, amener leurs enfants au centre-ville qui doivent cesser. Et le gouvernement fédéral demeure prêt, évidemment, à faire tout ce qu'il faut faire pour appuyer les autorités qui ont cette responsabilité-là. Peut-être, Mona, vous voulez ajouter quelque chose?
Merci, Dominique. Je pense que tu as été très clair et je voudrais rajouter le fait que dès la première journée, en discutant non seulement avec le maire Watson, mais avec les entrepreneurs, les travailleurs, il y avait question de comment on peut faire pour les soutenir. Et depuis le début de la pandémie, notre gouvernement a soutenu les entreprises, les travailleurs et les résidents et nous allons continuer à le faire. Nous explorons présentement les options possibles pour pouvoir les soutenir au niveau des fermetures des entreprises. Donc, nous allons revenir avec une solution, mais sachez que depuis le début, nous avons ces discussions et nous explorons les options qui sont possibles présentement.
Donc, à ce rythme-là, selon vous, M. Leblanc, est-ce qu'on en a encore pour des jours ou encore pour des semaines? Est-ce qu'il y a un moment où on va finalement décider de trancher, d'envoyer l'armée, par exemple, des militaires pour déloger les manifestants?
Je pense, Juliane, peut-être Marco peut ajouter quelque chose aussi. Le premier ministre a été très clair que c'est une responsabilité pour la police civile. Nous sommes là à l'appui des autorités municipales et provinciales. Et mes collègues ont bien exprimé, ce n'est pas aux politiciens de donner des instructions opérationnelles aux forces policières. Ce n'est pas comme ça que ça fonctionne dans une démocratie mature et responsable. Nous allons appuyer les autorités dûment assermentées pour prendre ces responsabilités-là. Et c'est ça le rôle d'un gouvernement responsable. Peut-être, Marco, vous voulez ajouter quelque chose?
Très rapidement, juste pour dire que je suis en accord avec toi, Dom. Il faut que le convoi partir. Le temps est bien passé. Les résidents d'Ottawa sont très impatients maintenant et on peut appuyer les forces policières avec les ressources. Mais nous espérons que cet convoi terminé dès que possible.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. Just a reminder to keep your questions and answers short, and we'll be able to squeeze in two other people. Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star.
Hi. I wonder if one of you could react specifically to the comments by the Texas Attorney General this weekend, who said that patriotic Texas donors are contributing to this truckers' convoy and their worthy cause. And do you consider that kind of thing foreign interference?
Well, I'm happy to take that question, Tonda, and begin by saying that it is certainly not the concern of the Texas Attorney General as to how we in Canada go about our daily lives in accordance with the rule of law. We have rules, we have laws, we have principles, we have values. Those are all enshrined in the Charter. And where those rules are broken, there is an appropriate way to address that through law enforcement. And what we have been talking about today, I think, is both a way of acknowledging the great frustration of those who live in Ottawa. We've talked about how it's important that the government can support police services who are carrying out their work independently by giving them whatever additional resources that they need. And we've also talked about the need to be vigilant about potential foreign interference. You've seen in the past number of days that GoFundMe has taken some concrete actions to stop the flow of funds to the leaders who have been attributed to this convoy. And that is as a result of flags that have come to their attention. And beyond that, whatever steps or investigations may be ongoing and that are being carried out by the police services will be done so in a fashion that is independent from the elected government. And so whatever statements may have been made by some foreign official are neither here nor there. We're Canadian, we have our own set of laws, and we will follow them.
Is anyone else commenting on that? I'm not sure, but if not, I'll go ahead with my follow-up.
Tanya, just quickly, we're all entitled to an opinion, and in my opinion, he's wrong.
Thank you. And look, I think you've left us all here with, your insistence that the Ottawa cops have all the tools and authorities they need, but they very specifically say they don't have the resources and they don't have the tools. They can't even get rid of, in some cases, some of the structures that have been set up because they have to consult with NCC or Indigenous groups. And they basically are saying their hands are tied. So what I'm hearing from you guys all say is, it's not our jurisdiction. In other words, it's not my job. And yes, there are clearly jurisdictional lines in normal times, but in a crisis or an emergency like this, how is it that nobody is seemingly taking the responsibility for leading the way?
Well, I do think, Tonda, as you've heard explained now very clearly, that where Ottawa Police Service needs additional capacity, that they are being supported by the OPP, by other police services, and including the RCMP. And together, the cooperation that is being seen among all levels of law enforcement is resulting in some very concrete and tangible progress over the last half day or so, and we hope that will continue. We've also talked about the need to maintain the divisions of function, and for good reason. We don't believe in politicizing law enforcement. There are some countries that do things that way, and that would not be appropriate here in Canada. I do think, though, that there will be an opportunity in the very near future to have the kind of conversation that you're talking about, to really be sure that we are capable of responding to this kind of event and preventing it from happening again. What's clear is that this kind of a situation is not acceptable, where you have a blockade, where you have the kind of significant interruption that we've seen over the last number of days that has negatively impacted Ottawa residents, and to work together across law enforcement, across all governments, to come to a better solution so that it never happens again.
Merci. Et on va passer à la dernière question. Hélène Buzetti, les coop de l'information. Question courte, réponse courte, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question est pour Monsieur Alghabra. My question is for Minister Alghabra. In December, your government announced that all employees in federally regulated workplace would have to be vaccinated by regulation. And that includes truckers that go from one provinces to another. So I was just wondering, is this still on, or given the circumstances, you want to put that on hold?
Thank you for the question, Hélène. We all believe that vaccines are our best way out of the pandemic. We actually ran a campaign on this just a few months ago, and Canadians overwhelmingly voted in support of parties and elected MPs who want to help us get out of the pandemic by following public health advice and scientists and doctors. We announced, Minister O'Regan announced last December, that we are now starting the consultation process for examining regulation to apply federally regulated sectors with a vaccine mandate. That work is ongoing. So As we've done in the past, we will follow public health advice. We will consult the best advice that is before us, and these discussions are ongoing as we speak.
So I gather that you're not backtracking on this. Mais mon autre question, peut-être pour le ministre Leblanc, concernant cette interférence étrangère que vous dénoncez, je me souviens qu'à l'époque de Stephen Harper, les libéraux étaient très critiques que le gouvernement conservateur veuille empêcher des fonds étrangers de venir appuyer, par exemple, des groupes écologistes. Alors pourquoi, si ce n'était pas bien à l'époque, ça devient bien maintenant?
Merci, Hélène, pour la question. Je pense mon collègue Marco Mendicino a bien expliqué qu'il y a des lois en vigueur au Canada qui contrôlent l'effort d'interférer de l'étranger, d'avoir une ingérence de l'étranger qui incite ou qui crée une circonstance qui ne respecte pas le Code criminel canadien ou les lois en vigueur au Canada. Nous avons des autorités de services de renseignement qui sont évidemment toujours à l'ouvrage pour identifier des menaces à la sécurité nationale du Canada et qui sont en place pour donner des avis à Marco Mendicino et d'autres autorités policières quant à l'ingérence potentielle de l'étranger. On parle ici d'une ingérence qui incite le désordre au Canada ou qui fait en sorte qu'on finance des activités qui ne sont pas conformes avec la loi canadienne. C'est une grande différence de manifester une cause écologique ou d'inciter ou financer des gens pour violer les lois au Canada. C'est une importante différence et l'obligation d'enquêter et de surveiller ces questions-là est évidemment dans les mains des autorités appropriées, que ce soit le service de renseignement du Canada ou la GRC, comme Marco a dit, mais peut-être mes collègues, Hélène, ont peut-être un dernier mot à ajouter.
Bien dit, Dominic. Bien dit.
Marco, that's encouraging. Merci.
C'était une réponse.
Vous avez fait beaucoup de progrès, Dom.
Merci. Donc, c'est ce qui met fin à la conférence de presse. This ends the press conference. Merci beaucoup d'être resté un peu plus longtemps jusqu'à 14 heures. C'est très apprécié. Have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Merci à vous aussi. Au revoir.
Merci.
Thanks, everyone.
Merci. Bonne journée.